Are you ready to share a new story? Well, I have chosen a rather musical story to share, and it's from the Messy Marvin and Friends series. The title is Grumpy Grace and the Christmas Concert. If you have this book at home, you can read along with me. The author, the person who has written this story, is Cheryl M. Charles, and the illustrator, the person who has drawn all the pictures, is Laurentiu Demetra. Now in this story, we're going to meet Grumpy Grace. She is feeling a little confused and she doesn't know why. And she's a little bit worried about the upcoming Christmas concert. I wonder if practice will make perfect. Shall we read and find out? Grumpy Grace and the Christmas Concert. Chapter 1. Helping Hands. Grumpy Grace sat at her desk with her hands propped under her chin. She wasn't having a good day. Grace was listening to her classmates, Cheery Clary and Chatty Patty, giggling and talking about how much fun they had with their families decorating their homes for Christmas. Grumpy Grace could only frown when she remembered slipping on a patch of ice on her way to school that morning. Luckily, Big Bub was close by and he reached out and offered a helping hand. Big Bub asked, "Are you okay?" She looked up at Bub sadly, but Grace was thankful for his help. The school day started with a math lesson, then a class visit to the library, followed by quiet reading time. Before lunch, their classroom teacher, Mrs. Charles, surprised the kids when she placed a few boxes of Christmas decorations on her desk. She reached into the first box and started pulling the items out one at a time. Then Mrs. Charles asked the kids to find buddies to lend a helping hand in decorating their classroom. Their teacher looked happy as she pulled a Christmas garland, a small Christmas tree, a wreath and colourful ornaments out of the box on her desk. She also found a cardboard snowman, a snuggly stuffed Santa and Christmas lights. Messy Marvin called out, "I found an old gingerbread man in this box." Hungry Hannah jumped to her feet and rushed to his side. Hannah was hoping that she and Marvin could share a morning snack. Hungry Hannah sulked when Messy Marvin lifted an old cardboard gingerbread man out of the box. She was hoping for a real gingerbread cookie. Picky Paul had joined his friends because he was eager to see what Christmas treasures were hidden inside. He was already standing close by when Marvin opened the box and pulled out the cardboard gingerbread man. Picky Paul waved his hands back and forth. The gingerbread man was covered in dust, and Paul was allergic to dust. He quickly raised his arm in an attempt to cover his mouth with his elbow. Paul didn't want to sneeze on his friends. Chapter 2. Recess Fun. When the lunch bell rang, the students went to the bathroom, washed their hands, returned to class, and then began to eat quickly. They couldn't wait to go outside and play in the fresh snow. Hungry Hannah was surprised and happy when she found real homemade gingerbread cookies in her lunch bag for dessert. Hungry Hannah happily shared her cookies with her desk mates, Big Bub and Messy Marvin. Marvin was almost finished his slice of pepperoni pizza and he was happy to accept Hannah's offer. Gingerbread cookies were one of his favourite holiday treats. It was the last week of school before the Christmas holidays and there was excitement in the air as the kids ate and talked about the Christmas activities which would take place that afternoon. Grumpy Grace just couldn't get into the holiday spirit and she didn't really know why she was feeling so gloomy. While she was waiting for Chatty Patty and Cheery Clary to join her for lunch, Grace was deep in thought as she sat and nibbled away quietly on her grilled cheese sandwich. The recess bell rang and Mrs. Charles told the kids to tidy up and get ready to go outside and play. She informed her students that they would continue unpacking the decorations after their outdoor break. That morning, Grumpy Grace just wasn't interested in opening the boxes and looking at any of the decorations. She just wasn't in the mood to join in on the holiday fun. Grace slumped her shoulders and dragged her feet as she made her way to the classroom door. Eventually, some of her classmates who had been busy peeking inside the boxes lined up behind her. Grace stood quietly and hoped that there wouldn't be any icy patches in the schoolyard. She didn't want to fall again. Grumpy Grace walked quietly as she trudged towards the other children who were playing near the big hill. Messy Marvin and Hungry Hannah had just rolled to the bottom of the hill and then they crawled on all fours and finally came to rest on a mound of fluffy snow. Marvin and Hannah couldn't stop laughing. The friends were covered in snow from head to toe. Chatty Patty, Cheery Clary, Big Bub and Sporty Scotty were building a snow fort. They had been working on their snow fort every day at recess for the last few days. Today was Thursday and the friends were almost finished. While Patty and Clary made the snow bricks, the boys put them carefully into place. Picky Paul and Brian were close by, making snowballs to help decorate the snow fort. First, they scooped up handfuls of snow. Then they made small round snowballs by packing and patting the snow firmly. Next, the friends inspected the snowballs. Finally, the boys would smile when they decided the snowball looked like a perfect sphere. Mr. Tate, the school principal, was on recess duty when he walked past and noticed that Paul and Brian were making snowballs. Mr. Tate was concerned. He stopped quickly to have a chat with the friends. "Don't worry, Mr. Tate. These snowballs are for our snow fort and not for throwing," explained Picky Paul. Mr. Tate smiled and patted Paul on his shoulder. Then he waved and said goodbye to the friends before leaving to continue his walk around the school grounds. He wanted to ensure the kids were all safe. Grumpy Grace looked on quietly from the sidelines. She thought about how lucky she was to have such a wonderful group of friends. Grace wasn't chatty like Patty or picky like Paul. She wasn't cheery like Clary, and she wasn't always hungry like Hannah. Grace wasn't messy like Marvin or sporty like Scotty. She wasn't always tired like Terry or jealous like Jen, and she wasn't easygoing like Bub. All of her friends were quite different, but they all cared about each other and got along very well. Grace's family loved her just the way she was, and they often told her that she was a wonderful girl with a big heart and a beautiful singing voice. Grace was still deep in thought when Piggy Paul approached and asked if she wanted to help place snowballs along the walkway of their snow fort. Unfortunately, the bell sounded. Recess was over and it was time to go inside. Grumpy Grace sighed. Maybe I can help my friends tomorrow, she thought to herself. Sporty Scotty raced past his classmates at top speed, while Grace continued her slow and careful walk as she looked out for patches of ice. Tired Terry walked slowly behind Grace. She let out a big yawn. It was mid-afternoon and Terry was already tired. Messy Marvin wasn't in a hurry to get into the line either. He spotted a small puddle of slush. He couldn't help but stop and jump up and down in the icy puddle. Anyone who knew Marvin understood that he loved puddles and couldn't resist jumping into the slush. Chapter 3. Deck the Halls. After lunch, the students unpacked the rest of their classroom decorations. Grace finally joined the other kids as they turned their classroom into a Christmas wonderland. The kids had made jolly Santas and sparkly star cutouts in art class the day before. The friends asked if they could also decorate the bulletin board outside of their classroom. Mrs. Charles gave the kids a thumbs up, and Marvin, Patty and Bub got to work decorating the bulletin board outside of their classroom. They were talking and laughing the whole time while Piggy Paul was scrutinising their work. He wanted to make sure that everything looked just right. Messy Marvin had gold glitter in his hair and on most of his clothes when they were finished decorating. Big Bub was always trying to lend a helping hand, so he brushed the glitter from Messy Marvin's shoulder while Marvin tried to get the glitter out of his hair. Meanwhile, Grumpy Grace stood by quietly and thought about the upcoming holiday concert. It would be an evening of fun for the families who could attend and watch the kids sing, perform plays, share their holiday poems, and listen to the school band play Christmas music. The school gym would be jam-packed with families who were thrilled to see their children perform. Maybe there would be too many people. What if the audience didn't like their Christmas carols? Grace began to feel nervous and her tummy felt funny. Chapter 4. Practice makes perfect. Grumpy Grace made a face. She had signed up for the Grade 3 Christmas choir only because her mom and dad begged her to join. They were hoping that performing would get Grace into the holiday spirit. Her parents also hoped that she would have a good time with her friends. When Grace sang her favourite songs around the house, her family would smile with delight. Mom and Dad knew that singing was one of the activities that made Grumpy Grace happy. When her parents pleaded with Grace to sign up for the Grade 3 Christmas choir, she finally gave in and agreed to speak with Miss Kovacs, her music teacher, at school the next day. Luckily, some of her classmates had already signed up a few weeks ago. Knowing this made Grumpy Grace feel a little better because she would be spending more time with her best friends. Suddenly, Grace heard some voices talking and laughing. She was jolted back to the present day. Grace realised that her classmates were now heading down to the school gym for their final dress rehearsal. Patty and Hannah were walking away when Patty called out, "Come on!" Grumpy Grace sighed and reluctantly started to follow the girls. When it was time for the Grade 3 choir to practice their Christmas carols, Picky Paul was happy to take his assigned spot in the back row. Big Bub was tall and he proudly took his spot next to Picky Paul. Grace snuck up behind Bub and poked her head out to see if Miss Kovacs had noticed that she wasn't in her usual spot on the risers. Grace wanted to stand in the back row behind Bub because she didn't want to be seen or heard. Chatty Patty, Jealous Jen, Tired Terry and Trinity got into place in the middle row. Next, Hungry Hannah, Sporty Scotty, Messy Marvin and Brian took their spots in the front row. Miss Kovacs started playing the piano so the kids could warm up their vocal cords before they began their rehearsal. Grumpy Grace didn't want to sing. She didn't like the first song and she felt like she had butterflies in her stomach. Maybe I'm nervous because I have to sing in front of so many people, she thought to herself. Finally, the kids stood up straight, took a deep breath and began to sing. The choir sang beautifully. They used clear, loud singing voices that could even be heard at the other end of the gym. Grumpy Grace moved her lips, but she wasn't singing. She was actually lip-syncing. From her hiding spot behind Big Bub, she could hear the other kids singing along with the music. Grace looked down in shock. She could hear Trinity singing in the middle row, and Grace loved her voice. She seemed to have the most beautiful singing voice of all the classmates. Trinity sang like an angel. Grace wasn't the only friend to notice Trinity's incredible talent. Bub and Terry had also been admiring Trinity's voice during the last few practices. The audience, filled with students from other classes, clapped when the Grade 3 choir finished their first Christmas carol. The friends beamed with joy. Grumpy Grace thought maybe she would try singing the next holiday song. She wanted to share the same happy feelings as her friends. Grace mumbled a few words during the second song, and by the third Christmas carol, she used her best singing voice. Chapter 5. The Christmas Concert. It was Friday night, and Grace walked along the snowy streets with her family. Tonight was the night of the Christmas concert. First, Grumpy Grace's family met up with Messy Marvin's family. They hurried through the fresh snow while they talked about the fun they would have that night. Then the large group passed in front of Chatty Patty's house, just as her family stepped onto their front porch. Patty's family was in a hurry to get to the concert to see the kids perform. Chatty Patty happily chatted on and on. She had many questions and comments. How many people do you think will come to our Christmas concert? The band sounded great at our dress rehearsal today. Maybe I will join the band after the Christmas holidays. I can play the flute. I can't wait to get up on stage and sing using my best voice. Are you guys nervous? I'm not nervous. When the families arrived at the school, they saw Mr. Tate, Mrs. Childs and Miss Kovacs, their music teacher, greeting everyone. Grumpy Grace was starting to feel nervous again. Grace rubbed her tummy because she was beginning to feel a little sick. The students went to their hooks to hang up their coats, take off their winter boots and change into their indoor shoes. Grumpy Grace looked towards the exit door and she wished she could make a quick dash and go home, but it was too late to turn back now. The class followed their teachers to the gym to find seats with the other choir members before the concert began. Along the way, Picky Paul was busy adjusting his fancy red bow tie. Messy Marvin had changed into clean clothes after eating lasagna for dinner earlier that night. He was now licking his lips, just in case there still might be tomato sauce and melty cheese around his mouth. Hungry Hannah was happily popping some grapes into her mouth. She was having her after-dessert snack. Clary and Patty were holding hands, giggling and chatting. The group entered the gymnasium and noticed the space was filling up with family and friends. Everyone was eager to see the Christmas concert. Mr. Tate stood next to the door and watched the class as they made their way into the gym. He gave them an encouraging thumbs up. The children were a perfect audience. They listened and watched quietly during the performances, and when each group finished performing, the entire audience cheered and clapped loudly. Chapter 6. A Star is Born. When it was their turn, Miss Kovacs waved the Grade 3 Christmas choir to the stage. Grumpy Grace's tummy was still rumbling. She walked towards the stage with slumped shoulders. When she looked up, Grace saw her family smiling. They looked so happy that she couldn't help but begin to smile a little. Big Bob helped his friends get onto the risers and the stage safely before taking his spot in the back row. Tonight, Grace decided to stand with Chatty Patty, Jealous Jen, Tired Terry and Trinity. She didn't hide behind Big Bub as she usually did during their choir practices. As she looked out into the audience, Grace started to think that maybe her parents were right. Perhaps she did have a beautiful voice and she should sing along to all the holiday songs. Miss Kovacs began playing the piano and the kids started to sing the first Christmas carol. Initially, Grace sang in a soft voice while she looked nervously towards her music teacher. However, by the second song, she was beginning to feel more relaxed. When the choir began singing their third song, Grace sang in a beautiful, loud and clear voice. She had a big smile on her face, and her hands were stretched out as she sang with joy and confidence. Her heart was beating fast and her cheeks felt warm, but her tummy wasn't feeling sick anymore. The butterflies were gone. Grace was proud of the choir's magnificent singing, and she was proud of herself for participating. The children chatted about the amazing Christmas plays, the school band, the choir performances for each grade, and the great holiday poems recited that night. Some of the friends also decided to join the school band in the new year with Chatty Patty. Cheery Clary said she was already taking piano lessons, but she wanted to start taking guitar lessons soon. Hungry Hannah suggested that they should take guitar lessons together. Jealous Jen started to feel left out. Her friends were going to sign up for the school band and start taking music lessons without her. She wondered what she could do to be included in these fun activities. After the concert, the parents came to the classroom to meet their kids for the walk home. There was so much laughter and excitement in the room. The kids and parents were chatting away. Hannah and Paul felt so proud of their performance that they gave each other fist bumps and talked about their plans for the Christmas holidays. When Grumpy Grace's parents came to the classroom to pick her up, they were all smiles. To their surprise, Grace was beaming after her amazing performance on stage. Her mom hugged her and whispered, "You are a wonderful singer." It was cold, but Grace's family walked home slowly as they enjoyed the fresh air. Grace looked up at the night sky. There were so many beautiful stars. Finally, she spotted one extra bright star to the north. She wished she could reach up and touch the star, but tonight Grace was happy to look up and bask in its twinkling light. Oh, what a terrific Christmas story that was, and a musical story. Well, Grace did feel sad and gloomy at the start, and she thought about how different she was from all her friends. But she realised that they were all so different. They all come from different backgrounds, and that is what makes them have such a wonderful friendship group. They all look out for each other and they all care about each other. I'm so glad as well that Grace started to listen to her parents, and she realised that she had a beautiful singing voice and could join in the choir with all her friends. Now, Messy Marvin has been clever. He has written a poem to his friend, Grumpy Grace. Shall we read? To my friend, Grumpy Grace. Grumpy Grace, Grumpy Grace, oh, where is your beautiful smiling face? She took a fall that broke her heart. The day seemed doomed right from the start. Big Bub held out his hand. Grace rose up and could finally stand. At school there was so much Christmas cheer, but Grace could barely smile. Oh dear, oh dear. Our friends played in the snow, but Grace's sad feelings seemed to grow and grow. She sure looked gloomy and felt quite worried. But there was no time to think as everyone scurried. At home, Grace had a beautiful choir voice. Her parents begged and begged. Was it really her choice? Would anyone hear her inner cries? And in her tummy she had, oh, so many butterflies. Finally, it was the big night. Would Grace still suffer from lingering stage fright? She stood tall and opened her mouth in song. Grace sounded beautiful, so she continued along. Now Grace is all smiles. She is now over her doubts, her burdens and trials. That night, Grace looked up at the North Star. It twinkled in the distance, even from afar. Messy Marvin is very clever to write such amazing poems about his friends. I wonder, could you write a poem about one of your friends? Now, in the back of the book, there are also some follow-up questions to help you recall the story. There are also some additional activities and art challenges for you to have a go at. I hope you've enjoyed today's Shed Time story, and if you want to, you can like, share, follow and subscribe to Shed Time Stories, and then you will be ready for the next book for us to share together. Bye-bye!